Welcome back to America Decides. The vice chair of the Democratic National Committee is defending his newly announced $20 million effort to unseat what he calls ineffective House Democrats. His name is David Hogg, and he joins me now. David, let's start with today's news. For those in the audience who may not remember, you are a survivor of the Parkland shooting in 2018. I'm sorry that that is true, and I appreciate what you have gone through. It has led to the activism and activity we're going to talk about politically, but I will set that aside just for a second. How are you processing and absorbing today's news?
I'm thinking about my friends that are at FSU. A lot of the young people who worked with us in March for Our Lives that I had to text and say, hey, are you okay? And thankfully, the friends that I texted are okay. But there's a lot of students from Parkland at FSU. And what really bothers me here is that in Florida, we worked in a bipartisan manner to pass reforms after Parkland. We passed a red flag law that has been used over 19,000 times to disarm people that are risk themselves and others. And no law is perfect by any means, clearly. But we still have so much more work to do. And my message today would be, let's figure out what we know that there's disagreements on this issue, obviously. But we all do agree on what matters most, which is that we need to do something. And we've seen the effects of that in Florida. And it's time for us to come back together again with the legislature in session and for Democrats and Republicans to focus on what we can agree on to make everybody safer so that things like this aren't headlines and they're history.
Second time for your friends to go through this.
Yes.
Are they okay?
I don't even know how to answer that because it's different for everybody. Because how are you supposed to go through it once? This is something that is not supposed to happen at all. We act like these are natural disasters in this country. It's not. This doesn't happen in other countries for a reason. It's because they have a strong regime of gun ownership there in the countries where they do have firearms to make sure that they have common sense laws around it. And let's be clear, this shooting, as the results, as details are coming out about it, this is the product of irresponsible gun ownership. If you're not locking up your guns and your child is able to access it and use it like this, you probably shouldn't have a firearm. And if it comes out that this law enforcement officer wasn't properly securing the firearm, that is a huge problem, and they should be held accountable.
The organization you have talked about this week, Leaders We Deserve, $20 million to primary, possibly so-called asleep at the wheel Democrats in safe seats in the House. Why?
Look, ultimately, our approval rating as a party is at 27% right now with our base. And there's all this conversation that happens around our messaging all the time. And here's the deal. You can have a great script, but if you have actors that are awful at their jobs, it doesn't matter how good that script is or how good the message is if people aren't really able to hear it. And it's not to say that this is about older people. Let me clear a few things up. There's people that say this is only going after older people. That is not true. I wish it was I wish it was simple enough to say all these people above a certain age are terrible, but that's not true. Right? There are great older people like Congresswoman Pelosi, there are people like Steny Hoyer, people like Jim Clyburn and others that are doing excellent jobs that we need to mentor the next generation. And I know if they reach the moment where they aren't able to serve in this role anymore, that they'll decide that for themselves and make the right decision. But ultimately, there are old people that are great, there are young people that are great, and there's also old and young people that are not great either. And what we're trying to do here is not just focus on primaries in safe seats, not frontline seats where we risk losing the House potentially, but give our base a voice and give them people who are willing to fight for them so that we can rally them and get back to winning the majority in the House.
Name check for me an asleep at the wheel Democrat.
Well, right now, part of my hope with this is that some of those Democrats will decide not to run again because they know that this effort is going to be out there, because I don't want to have to do this. I don't want there to have to be Democratic primary challengers in these safer seats. Right now, I'm waiting to see which ones go out there and plan on deciding to step aside, because, again, I don't want to have to do this ultimately. I want to make sure that we're spending as much time and effort as we can to win back the House. But ultimately, if we have an approval rating of 27%, we don't have much of a future of our party, not to mention the fact we lost voting share with every single demographic except the older demographic and the highly educated. You don't have a future of your party if that remains the case. And we have to show our base right now that we're doing everything we can to fight back against Donald Trump. And that includes holding ourselves accountable, because the people that vote for us should not be voting for us because we're not Donald Trump necessarily. They should be voting for us because we deliver for them and we give them a better option, not just the least bad of two options that are out there.
Let me let you address some social media criticism you've gotten. Matt Bennett from the Clinton-Gore era. This is insane behavior. John Anzalone, pollster most recently for President Biden.
Yeah.
$20 million should be spent on swing state legislative races, meaning state legislative races, and down ballot, not on this. Steve Schale, a Florida Democratic strategist, saying the DNC's vice chair should be focused on this kind of engagement, meaning engaging in places in battleground states where Democrats have lost ground, not over which Dem in a plus 20 seat should be primaried and knocked out?
You know, look at the last results of the previous election. Those are the purported experts that brought us here. Just to say, it's not personal, right? I don't take those attacks personally in this regard. This is a strategic disagreement. And I want to be clear. All this money that we're raising is not only being spent on primaries by any means. That is the story that a lot of journalists and media run with. We are working.
What are you also going to spend it on?
We're also going to be spending it on frontline seats where great young people are running, right, if they are the Democratic nominee, to make sure we're bringing in fresh faces to Congress. Right now, we talk about diversity all the time in Congress. One of the things we don't talk about as much in regard to that is age. Currently, if we had the same number of 25 to 30-year-olds in Congress as we do proportionally to the population, we would have over 40 people under the age of 30 in Congress. And I don't know if you've looked at Congress recently. We have one that is under the age of 30. That is not good for the future of the Democratic Party. President Biden was as successful as he was, I would argue, because he started when he was 29, which I know is hard for some younger people to believe. But if you look at FDR, if you look at LBJ, they started all before they were 30, and they became that successful because they were that young.
So
and right now, those leaders don't have that chance. So this is an age thing. Well, part of it is, but there's also the fact that a lot of our members of all ages, not just older people, there are older members that are meeting this moment. Like I said, like Congresswoman Pelosi, that has spent the past decade fighting back against Donald Trump. But there are members, too, because it's not just a matter of age, it is a matter of effectiveness. People say, well, David, is this just out with the old and in with the new? I would say no. This is out with the ineffective and in with the effective, because we need members who are ready to meet this moment to fight back against Donald Trump. And what that looks like are people like Senator Van Hollen, who are literally going to El Salvador to say this man needs to come back. It looks like people like Cory Booker, who, mind you, did primary somebody to get to that position. It looks like people, in many ways, like Hakeem Jeffries, who primaried multiple people to get to that position, right? This is a healthy process for our party, and I think we should have an embrace of it when it doesn't risk us losing the House, because it's not a zero-sum game here. Many people are saying, well, this money needs to go to just frontline races, and I understand that criticism. But what I would argue is look at the people that are actually fighting right now. They are the ones that are raising the most money. AOC raised over $10 million last quarter. Senator Chris Murphy raised millions, as did Al Green. They are raising that money, and it's not as simple as a zero-sum game. What I worry about is right now, where is the plan from those purported experts that are criticizing this to actually change our party and address the 27% approval rating that we have, because they do not have one.
David, very quickly, for those who would say any party that's in distress, and a party like the Democrats after the 2024 election is clearly in distress, has no time for a strategic circular firing squad.
I wouldn't call this a circular firing squad necessarily. What I would call this is an embrace of the very thing that many of our older members fought to create after the 1968 DNC, which was a further mass adoption of the popular primary process, right? We've replaced those smoke-filled back rooms that they fought so hard against creating with a culture of seniority politics that is killing the future of our party, because the litmus test of whether or not you remain in a position is no longer, are you the best person to be in that position? The litmus test is, well, how long have you been there? That's not acceptable. It needs to be, are you the best person to meet this moment when our country is in crisis and so many of our young people feel like democracy is not delivering for them? Because we go out there as Democrats all the time and say democracy is the most important thing. We have to defend democracy. We fail to acknowledge that this generation, democracy is what put us through school shooter drills and school shootings. It's what's put us through the climate crisis and so much more. What we have to do is prove that democracy matters by standing up to the special interests that are killing the American dream and making our young people lose faith, not only in our party, but the future of this country. That is why we're doing this.
For you personally, is this a John Lewis moment?
I would not ever compare myself to John Lewis. He's an incredible, prolific figure, although he did primary someone to get to that position. So I appreciate you bringing him up. What I would say is I stand on the shoulders of giants, as do all the young people in our party that are working to meet this moment. And what I would say to the people that are critical of the Democratic Party is, look, I am not in this position because I think we are God's greatest gift by any means. I am in this position because I know for families like mine what the Democratic Party can do. And what I mean by that is when my father was diagnosed when I was in 5th grade with early onset Parkinson's disease, and he faced an early medical retirement from the FBI, the reason why our family didn't face bankruptcy was because of the Social Security system that Democrats fought to create and the safety net that we created. What I believe in isn't the Democratic Party that we have today, but the Democratic Party that we could be. And if people believe in that effort, join your local Democratic Party, be part of the change that you want to see, and understand the great thing about our party is we are not a cult. You can be critical of it and still be a Democrat at the same time. Sometimes our messaging is a little more widespread than the Republicans, but guess what? We don't have a strongman at the top that excommunicates people because we have diversity and a diversity of approaches and strategies, and we need everybody in this fight to step up and be part of the change that they want to see. So don't just criticize, be part of it and help make us better. That's what I'm trying to do, and that's what all of us can do to build the party that we all need.
David Hogg, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.